Lot's a businessman, so he knows how to work a deal in verse 6. So he goes outside, he talks to him and says, don't do that. And he identifies them, no, my friends. These are people that he's worked with at the gate. Then he said, don't do this wicked thing. You see it? And then look what he offers. I have 2 daughters who never slept with a man. Let me bring them to you and do with them what you will. That says that the third level of failure that Lot made was at the level of expectation. He felt that he could change society without taking a stand against society. They would say to their friend, get out the way. And they kept bringing pressure on Lot. Let us in, let us in. But here are my daughters. I don't want to go to a church where the preacher talks about what happens in the world. I just want him to tell me how to get to heaven. You can't change society unless you take a stand against society. The Lord has put us in this community. We probably can't change all of Houston. But you and I ought to be working like everything, day and night, trying to at least change the street that we own. Changing something. Well, I just go along to get along. You can't change society unless you take a stand against society. I've tried all my best not to say anything about this apprentice president that we have. And look, I don't play the game of Democrat or Republican or independent. I'm a Christian. I vote my convictions. But at the same time, somebody got to take a stand against this presidential nutcase that we have around us. And you can't change it without standing against it. Repealing, pulling back on religious organizations, if they say something negative about him, I was asked by the Chronicle to respond to that just this past week. It's a double-edged sword. You're going to pull away from the very people that supported you now? And then try to mute the mouths of those that disagree with you? He never could be a preacher. He think his job hard. You can't change society without standing up against the injustices and the evils in a society. Children displaying the Nazi Hitler gesture, not in Kentucky, not in Tennessee, not in Alabama, around the corner in Cy-Fair. Unless you forget, Nazism was not born out of the ignorance of Germany. It was born out of the high rational intelligence of the German university. It's nothing laughable, as I heard one young man say, well, they didn't mean anything bad. What do you mean? 6 million Jews and counting were killed because of that sign. The swastika is a hate symbol against anybody that is not white and supremacist. It ain't just black, it's yellow and brown. Somebody got to stand up against it. You can't stand up against it by sitting down, not voting, not participating. You got to make your voice known and say, even the children, we won't tolerate this. And if our school boards want to address it, we need to vote them out and put some of y'all in to make a difference. Preach, Pastor West. I look at this and I say, my Lord, am I going backwards? And many of us, we got fooled when we had an African American in the White House. We started talking about a post-racial context. Ain't nothing post about racial. Racism now is louder and more visible and more vocal than it's ever been before. Can't change society without taking a stand against it. And so here you have Lot with his family, and he doesn't stand up against anything. And then he makes the failure at the level of example. Look at verse 9. Get out of the way. They kept bringing pressure on him. And then in verse 10, it gets bad. They reach inside. They try to pull him out. You see the tug of war that takes place here. These men then are struck at the door with blindness. Verse 12. Lot, you got to get your family out of here. You got to get them out of here. Now, I have to read this. The two men said to Lot, do you have anybody else in the house? Sons-in-law, sons, daughters, anyone else in the city that belongs to you? Get them out of here, because we're going to destroy this place. The outcry of the Lord against his people is so great that he sent us to destroy it. Now here is the hinge pin of the story. Verse 14, on example. Because Lot wanted his household to accept his words and overlook his lifestyle. Remember, he's at the gate. He's a big businessman. He has influence. And look what he says at verse 14. This is it. So Lot went out and spoke to his sons-in-law who were pledged to be married to his daughters. Hurry, get out of this place, because the Lord's about to destroy the city. Now that's a word. Hurry, get out of this place. The Lord is about to destroy this city. But remember, he got tents, but he don't have altars. Up until this moment, he never says a word about God. God's not in his business. God's not in his relocation project. God's not a part of the rearing of his children. God's not a part of his wife. God is not a part of his business. And now that judgment comes, he comes running in the house and he said, look, God is about to destroy. And look what it says. You might want to read it with me. What their reply was. But his sons-in-law thought he was joking. Anytime you only talk about God in your crisis, your children and your family think you're a joke. Just because you have a Bible and you never open it to read it, they think you're a joke. You join the church and then you never have a good word to say about God's people. And then when they get in trouble, you start talking about God. They think you're a joke. You get married at the altar and leave God there. And then when your marriage starts crumbling, all of a sudden we better go to church like God, some genie in the bottle. They think you are joking. Preach, Pastor West. Are you serious? You're going to talk about God to us? For real? Only time you do that is when you're just making a gesture. Oh my God. OMG. And now you want us to believe in a God that you're always playing about. I've had people come to me, children go off to college, get in their philosophy classes, read some Bertrand Russell, read some Albert Camus, read some Richard Dawkins, and they come back, I don't believe in God no more. Then mama and daddy come in nervous, pass, call, talk. Lord, they done gave up on God. And I always have to start, and that is, I can't give them in 30 minutes what you've neglected in 18 years. Every now and then, Dad, when you're walking around, you ought to remind your children, everything we have, the Lord gave it to us. Every now and then you ought to remind them, if it had not been for the grace of God, we wouldn't be where we are. You ought to get in your car, and when you drive up on the parking lot and put the car in gear, you ought to just say, thank you, Jesus. Eventually your children will say, why do you always say that? And you tell them, as dangerous as these streets are, when you get to where you're going and you get there safely, you ought to thank the Lord right there. You ain't got to preach no whole sermon. When you get at the table, you ought to say, let us bless what God has provided for us, Lord. Thank you for this daily bread. I'm done now. I'm done. Yeah. Don't treat God like he's just on Sunday, that he's some spare tire, that the only time you reach for him when your life go on flat. Ride with him every day. Start today when you walk out of here, get in the car and say, thank you, Jesus. Look over at your wife, your girlfriend. Look at your children and say, whoever it is, thank God for you today. Thank you for going to church with me today. Thank you for worshiping God with me today. Every now and then you ought to have church before you get to church. You ought to be in there just thinking about what the Lord has done. Stop worrying about what he's going to give you. Stop worrying. Just thank him for what? Thank him for his goodness to you. Watching over me and protecting me and keeping me. You know it's true. If the Lord don't do anything else, the Lord have done enough. He woke us up this morning. Lord have mercy. I didn't mean to go that far, but my soul got happy. This ain't just preacher talk to me. This is how I live in my own house. It ain't got nothing to do with mistakes and how good you've been and what errors you have made. Somebody may say that to you. Here you are talking about God and you done that. Say, I sure have. I ain't proud of it, but I thank God that he loved me enough to give me another chance at it. I sure have blown it. I sure have stumbled and fallen, but thank God that they that wait upon him, the Lord shall renew their strength. Can I give you one last thing? One last thing and I'm done. The last mistake he made was at the level of entanglement. At verse 15, the morning's coming. It's been a long night. for Lot and his family. So much have come full circle for him now that he had neglected because he had his tent but no altar. He's thinking now, but he's entangled. Now you would think that what you and I read, that's enough for you to just say, well, if the Lord said move, the city is under destruction, let's go. He's the nephew of Abraham, the progenitor of the Israelic family, the father of the faithful. He has history enough that once God speaks, then let's go. So you would just think that he would go. Let's see what happens to him at the level of entanglement. With the coming of the dawn, verse 15, the angel says to Lot, hurry. Now you see the urgency of this. Get your wife, get your daughters, or you'll be swept away in the punishment. Now, I mean, this is language to say, okay, all right, it's time to go. Verse 16, would you read that with me? Just the first clause. He hesitated. Entanglement. You see, he hesitated because he didn't know how much of Sodom had gotten into him. But he also didn't know how much of him had gotten into Sodom. Sodom was in Lot, and Lot was in Sodom. And even at the point of destruction, he couldn't let go. I've heard some of you, bless your heart, you're tired. My husband was living with this addiction, my son, my daughter, this addiction. Why don't they just let go? See, it's easy for you to say that because you don't have a proclivity to their addiction. Let me tell you something. If they could just let it go, they would let it go. If they could turn that crack pipe loose, they could stop shooting that heroin in their vein. If she could get off that corner, if he could get off that corner, they would do it. Let me tell you, those of you who have strong moral constitutions, don't be so quick to judge other people. I didn't say you couldn't have a heartbreak. I didn't say that. I said be careful not to judge so quick. I don't see how. That's right. You can't see how they could do that. I think of some of my friends who excelled in school and drug addiction took a hold of them. The brightest in our class, summa cum laude graduates. I'm thinking right now of a young man, the most promising, one of the most promising young preachers from my college. They called him the gentleman robber. He was nice when he robbed. After people pleaded to get him out of prison, he married and within 2 weeks murdered the woman that he was married to. Oh, you said his mama was a junkie and that? No, he came out of an upper middle class family. He went to one of the best colleges and seminaries. Oh, he came out, no, his family, his mom and dad, both college and university graduates. Frat brother. All them credentials don't mean nothing when sin gets a hold of you. I said sin. I didn't say error in nature. I didn't say seizure of morality. I didn't say messed up like, we want to talk about the Lord came to help me in my mess ups. No, he didn't. He came to deliver you out of your sin. Psychologists and sociologists can help you out of your messed up. Only Jesus can deliver you out of your sin. I'm done now. Verse 16, when he hesitated. And look at the very next clause. The men, that is the angels, look what they had to do. Grasp his hands and the hands of his wife and the hands of his daughters. That is, when the city is being destroyed, instead of them running to safety, they're holding on tight to Sodom. It ain't as easy to let Sodom go as you think. Sometimes God got to send some angelic help to lift you out of a place, to drag you out of a place. Yeah, that's what entanglement would do to you. Entanglement will wrap itself around you. Its tentacles will get in you. Entanglement. Oh, yes, it will. Entanglement will do that. Sin will make you go further than you want to go. It'll make you stay longer than you want to stay and make you pay more than you're willing to pay. Sin will do that to you. Entanglement. When Eskimos want to catch a wolf, they blade a two-edged knife with the blubber of an animal and freeze it, and then places that knife solidly in ice, and then that carnivorous wolf comes sniffing, and when it sees that knife doesn't move, it begins to lick it. And the warmth of its tongue began to melt the ice blubber, and the more it tastes the blubber, the more it licks until it literally licks its life away. That's what sin does to all of us. I don't care who you are. You can be the preacher, the deacon, the trustee, the choir, the usher, the greeter, a church member. That's what sin does to us. That's why we need somebody that can rescue us from us. I'm done. This is chapter 19. But while the angels are pulling the hands of Lot, his wife and daughters, Abraham in chapter 18 is on his knees at the altar praying to God. And the only reason why many of us are where we are now is because some Abraham, some mama, some daddy, some big mama, some papa, some auntie, some uncle, some church mother, church father, Sunday school teacher, coach got on their knees and took the time out and prayed for me. If it had not been for the Lord on our side, where would we be? Yeah, thank God for somebody on their knees asking God save him and rescue her and turn them around. In my own life, I ain't talking about when I'm talking in my own life right here. If it had not been for the prayers of the righteous availing much, I don't know what would have happened to me by now. But I thank God for men and women who have got on their knees and took me before the altar. It ain't got nothing to do with how good we are. It has everything to do with how gracious God is. Great is our faithfulness. Great is our faithfulness. Morning by morning, new mercies I will see. All that I need, all that you need, the Lord's hand hath provided. Great is thy faithfulness.